Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wennicha Yang. I am Thomas Yang and June Yang's second oldest daughter. I am so happy you all could join my family today as we are gathered here to celebrate Brian's life and see him one last time. I will be speaking in English for the duration of my speech. I ask that for those of you who know how to speak both Hmong and English, for you to silently help translate for loved ones who are near. Brian is younger than me by 2 years, but I have always felt like he was older than me. My little brother mentored me to be the best, courageous version I could be for myself. As a young Hmong woman, it was really hard for me to come by people who believed in me and invested in me. Everyone wanted me to be a traditional, obedient Hmong daughter and told me I would never amount to be a great leader because I was a woman. But Brian never did that. Brian believed in me. He always wanted to know who I was working on becoming. He would call me to check up on how I was doing. If I was working on a passion project, he would ask me, "How can I support you?" He never told me I couldn't do it. He never shamed me. When I told Brian I was applying to grad school this past year, he didn't ask me, "How are you going to pay for it?" Or, "Are you sure you can do it?" He eagerly said to me, "I'm so happy for you. If you need any help, let me know." Brian helped me write a strong personal statement for grad school. He spent his time challenging me to become a stronger writer and reminding me why I was worthy of becoming a mental health therapist. Brian was always excited when I started something I was passionate about, and he wanted to help me make it happen. This was one of the many ways I knew my brother loved me wholeheartedly. Brian made living easier because he was in it. We used to play games and watch TV as we waited for my older siblings to come home from school. If my dad was too harsh on either of us, we stepped in to protect each other, the best that we could. Brian and I always went to school together. Brian transferred to a different elementary school when he was in the 3rd grade, and I joined him when I was in the 5th grade. I remember feeling nervous because I didn't have any friends. I told Brian this, and he eagerly introduced me to all of his friends, which was basically everyone at school. When Brian started middle school and high school, I was excited to introduce him to all of my friends and made sure he felt comfortable at his new school. Unawarely, Brian was my best friend, and our friends would always compliment on our relationship because they saw how we loved each other. Before I went to college, Brian was about to become a senior. I told Brian that I believed he was smart, extraordinary, and worthy of going to a prestigious college. Brian shared with me that he didn't know what college he wanted to go to, and I wanted him to know that I believed in him. So I intentionally planted a seed in his head, and it grew. That coming year, Brian applied to 24 prestigious colleges and was accepted to 14 of them. Brian attended Brown University, one of the top colleges in the United States of America. My Hmong refugee parents did not know where Brown University was, and at first didn't want him to go because he would be really far from home. But when they heard that it was a very good college, they became open to the idea. Brown gave Brian the opportunity to bloom into a more authentic version of himself. Brian became a powerlifting champion, ranked 26th in the nation in 2016. He began his videography career, traveled the world, and he never stopped making his dreams happen. As I am the middle child in my family, Brian was my only little brother before Arthur came along. I always told Brian he was my favorite little brother in the whole wide world. Brian would smirk at me and say, "I am your only little brother." I would laugh and respond, "Even more special." No matter how old we became, we always said the same thing to each other and laughed about it. Three months before Brian passed away, Brian and I shared a conversation about the great beyond. What happens to us after we pass? I shared with him that I believe we continue to live on, but with a different purpose. We continue to navigate the world as ancestors and infinite beings. I told Brian that I believed we shared an infinite connection because we shared such a kind, loving, supportive sibling relationship, and raised the belief that perhaps we have always played a part in each other's past lives. We just don't remember it. Brian was silent, giving him time to process. And in his most stern voice, said he agreed. He shared with me that he believed we have always been in each other's multiple reincarnated lives, and that we will always be infinitely connected. And that we will always be infinitely connected to each other, even after we pass. When Brian passed away in July, I did not know these words would come back to guide me as I grieved. Brian's love illuminated my life in many wonderful ways. Brian made living so much easier. Brian wrote a letter this past year to a nonprofit organization called St. Paul Urban Tennis, which is also known as SPUT. SPUT was a summer tennis program my siblings and I all joined when we were young to be active. Brian joined when he was in middle school and has stayed connected with them since. In December 2020, just this past year, Brian wrote a letter to young high school students who were learning tennis. I want to share this letter with you because my family and I believe it is what he would want all of us to know. Brian titled this letter as Action. Brian wrote, "I completed a 52-mile ultramarathon in Terrebonne, Oregon on November 8, 2020. The race's terrain was a mixture of mountain and desert and 27-degree weather, and it had a total race elevation of 7,300 feet. Imagine scaling the Statue of Liberty 24 times and then running a double marathon immediately afterward to put things into perspective. The task was far from easy. Whenever I talked about this race, the common response is, 'That's a lot of miles.' I replied with, 'No, really. I had to run 1,800 miles to get this far.' The task at hand was initially so overwhelming that I didn't think it was humanly possible. Now I know that my potential, our potential, is damn near endless." Ultramarathon distances range from 50 kilometers, 50 miles, 100 kilometers to 100 miles, and are usually ran on mountain trails. I had numerous questions starting off. What kind of person would ever want to submit their lives into such pain? What do they benefit from these ultra-distance races? What does it take to run 100 miles? What is the limit of the human potential? And what do these people that look so normal have that I don't? These questions haunted me. I wanted to join the sport in hopes that the limit-breaking potential would rub off on me. Trust me, I hate running just as much as anyone does, but I hate being mediocre even more. Mediocrity in academics, sports, family, friendships, and work. What would my life look like if I could be better than I already am now? I came to the realization that the best way to find my answers was to start now. I've come a long way, and I've learned more than I expected about myself. However, this message is not about my running journey. It's not even about ultramarathons. It's about taking action and not squandering at the opportunities presented in front of you. Regret is the most lethal poison to us all. Most of us would not be able to relate to running 52 miles, but we can all relate to being stuck between decisions. Realize that we live in a unique time of excess opportunity, and the inability to decide will haunt you, as it did to me. Many of you reading this are going to college soon, or are already in college. Universities now have dozens, if not hundreds of majors from sociology to medieval studies to applied astrophysics. Young adults today are additionally more aware of social issues than ever before. And I know most want to make the world a better place. But where do we start? We are incredibly empathetic towards refugee displacement, climate change, civil rights, gender rights, identity politics, disability studies, immigration, and universal design. But how do we choose the right internships or jobs to apply for that synchronizes our studies and passions that we're pulled to in so many directions? What route is the best, safest, most financially responsible, and fastest to get to where we want to be? What can we do to have the least amount of regret at the end of our lives? The answer is simple. Just choose and don't look back. Too many people, not just young adults, spend so much time thinking, pondering, weighing options, seeking advice, and justifying benefits that most never act on their opportunities. If you are stuck between two options and you can't decide, just choose. You will never know how either will go until you decide. You won't know who you'll meet, what skills you'll learn, or what opportunities exist on the other side until you commit to a decision. And if you learn that the decision you made isn't working well with your mind, soul, and heart, then now at least you know and can harness your energy towards what you really want to do and what you really want to accomplish. Whether it's a career, romantic partner, a decision to matriculate to a university, you will never know the limit of your potential unless you've made a commitment to travel the distance. Go the distance. Take ownership of your life. Be happy. Be poised. Decide. Live your life on your terms. Commit. Be endless. Take action. Now. Just because my brother passed away young does not mean he did not value his life. He valued it so much that he wanted to make sure he gave it everything he got and did everything he loved. Brian wants all of us to live courageously and always choose what we love. Whether you knew my brother closely or not, I hope you walk away thinking about how you can live your life more courageously. If you are living your purpose, and if you love what you are doing. Thank you.